BJJ report. BJJ report. Brandon Hanley here. You already know that because my name shows up on Facebook Live just like that. Fatherhood for the rest of us. Voice of a generation. Voice of a generation of fathers that give a damn. I had a friend reach out today who I haven't spoken with for a while. It was actually one of the people I interviewed early on. Christy, what's going on? He reached out to me today on a number of things. Let me make sure this doesn't fall over. Reached out to me today on a number of things, and if he catches this live or the podcast, he will know that it is for him. But what he spoke to and of, I think I can speak to everyone with this as something I think a lot of people go through. One of those things that he's kind of going through right now is that he's been doing a podcast and running his side hustle, his passion, his gig for about the same amount of time as myself. You know, doing the podcast and Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. We started around the same time. So it's about a year and a half, year and 3/4 now he's been at it. And he said he's kind of running out of steam. He says he's consuming sometimes more than he's producing. And I empathize with that. I think that's the right word. I understood what he was talking about. Because what happens is that you get into this consumption mode. Consumption, consume. Taking in more and more information. And that's kind of addictive in of itself, because each new idea that resonates with you is kind of like running down the hallway of all your friends going high five, but it never stops. You're like, I agree with that idea. That's a great idea. That's perfect. And you think about 90 ways to implement that, and before you implement it, you go and you read another book, you go and you listen to another podcast, you go read another blog, you go take in more information instead of saying, how can I use this? And just even is simply writing out how you would use it. What does that look like in your life? Tony Lee, what's up? It's good to see you. I've been and so he's talking about taking a break, and I thought to myself, even before he said that today, a year ago at this almost exact same time, I took a break then too. I stepped back. I was like, you know what? I'm doing this, all this action, all this activity, and I'm not letting any of the seeds that I'm planting grow. I'm not letting anything take root. I'm not letting anything grow. You know, once you put something out there, once you lay an idea out, you tend to it. You nurture that idea. You see how it can grow. Sometimes you want to do that before the next one takes root, or you just sit back and say, hey, it's Bartles and James time, right? Sit back, and your season for the year may be over in regards to all the action and activity, and you pause for a minute, you reflect, you look in, you take a look at your growth, you ponder the growth, you ponder what you've planted throughout the whole year. So it makes sense that if it's going to work with the plant, that if it's going to work with every other natural thing that occurs in this world that we live in and that we are a part of, that we do that too, that we go through those growth cycles as well. We have our own cycles. So your rhythm may be different. I recognize now that this, I'm probably driving like under the speed limit by like 10 miles an hour. My rhythm, I realize now, is go hard until about September, and then around September there's an inflection point, and I sit back and I just kind of take stock. You know, you look at what I looked at what I've planted. I looked at what's grown and how the year's gone by. The activity isn't always the indicator that something is happening. I know that's kind of crazy to think, but the activity is not the fruit. The activity is not the fruit of your labor. The fruit of my labor is getting that one email that says, hey, listen, I've been listening to your podcast and I've got these questions and I've been thinking about this, that, the other thing. The fruit of my labor is that somebody's heard it and wants to have a dialogue, that wants to talk about those things. I about lost my mind because it comes up and he says, Brandon, you've been talking about the science of getting rich almost all year. And he says he's been very curious about it. And the one thing that he talks about in the science of getting rich, Wallace D. Wattles, and anybody who's kind of come across my path this year has heard me go on Wallace D. Wattles' Science of Getting Rich all year long, because the book has kind of blown my mind in a great way in terms of the one question he has. He goes, I can't wrap my head around what is the certain way that Wallace D. Wattles keeps saying you need to do things in a certain way. The certain way was, my eyes were open to the reinterpretation of what that could be by the interview that I did with Bryce Prescott, who was deep into Wallace D. Wattles, and he said, look at, what is the definition of a certain way? It doesn't have to be so, what is the certain way? Well, if you look up what is certain, that is definite, it is with confidence, it's with doing it definitely. When you take your next step, you're taking it certainly. You don't have to know all of the steps as you make your forward steps, but you've got to be certain of yourself. You've got to have faith in yourself. You've got to be certain of the activities that you have made are leading up into what you believe has been your endeavor. So I think we can sometimes look too deep past just a simple definition of what the word is. But to do things, I believe, in a certain way, it's just to do them with purpose, to do them certainly, to do them with meaning, to have all these things backed behind them. That they have, it's the same thing as Tony Robbins saying, what if you, actually it wasn't even Tony Robbins that came up with this line, it was a guy from, guy from the 70s who came up with it. But what if you knew you couldn't fail? What if you knew you couldn't fail? Then you would do things with absolute certainty. You were certain that you could not fail. So I think, in my mind, that's kind of how that plays out. That's always got the opportunity to change the more that we learn, the more that we can apply that to. But that's how I'm currently applying the certain way. So I certainly do appreciate the email. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate our friendship. I appreciate, that you're reaching out to me. And like I told you, and like I told him, I can't read that right now, Tony. Internet issues. Do things in a certain way currently just means to have faith in yourself, believe in yourself, and keep taking those steps forward. Your next step is the right step. Believe in that. Be certain that it is true. So I don't know how many different ways you want to spin certain, but go ahead and that's how I have internalized it. I've internalized that, and for anybody else who has been curious about the science of getting rich and might like some other takes on it, Bob Proctor has a really good one that I've had on replay almost every day, actually, at double speed. Look up Bob Proctor's Science of Getting Rich. It's about an hour and 46-minute seminar that he gives where he ties how to do things in a certain way in with, of course, the Science of Getting Rich and Napoleon Hill. That's his shtick. I hope that answers some of anyone's questions, and especially the gentleman that sent me an email. I hope that answers your questions as it relates to what it means to do things in a certain way. I also want to say, guys, it's okay to take pause. This is something I've been wrestling with over the past month and a half or so. We live in an all or nothing society, so it's been like, well, do I keep going or do I stop this? You know what? Man, it doesn't rain 24/7. It's not sunny 24/7. I can't podcast in fatherhood for the rest of us. all day, every day, sometimes other things creep up in life. And, I'm just happy to be here with you, doing this and being here. Sometimes my favorite friends and friendships, kind of come and go without attachments. And it's just always good to see my friends. And I consider you all my friends. And it's always good to see you. If there's ever anything, if ever you want to reach out, feel free to shoot an email to brandon@fatherhoodfortherestofus.com. We can always strike up a conversation. And, hopefully you're enjoying whatever season it is that you are in your life, and you are doing things in a certain way.